Well, hey guys, and welcome to another Kicking Out with the Red Shadow video. And I haven't done one of these in a while, and I think I've mentioned before they probably won't be super frequent because my wrestling engagement these days is pretty limited to just stuff that I read online or Blu-rays and stuff that I buy when they come out. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things that have happened somewhat semi-recently that have really piqued my fancy here recently, and I just thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about them. Now I had to look at my videos to see whether or not I had talked about the first wrestler. This actually really mainly has to focus on three wrestlers who've come to the WWE within the last year or two that I think is really exciting, and I would really be into watching these guys if I was watching the current product, or at least two of the three, because the first one I'm going to talk about is Sting, and the sad news that was released in the last few days that Sting is pretty much done. The injury that he suffered, I believe, last September to his neck is going to force him to retire. And what saddens me about that the most is Sting was one of those long WCW holdovers who never dabbled with WWE in all those years in the 90s and the 2000s when he was super big for WCW and later TNA, but he had never come to WWE, and everybody was just like clamoring for Sting to appear in a WWE ring, and everybody wanted that Undertaker versus Sting at WrestleMania match, which is now never going to happen. I think Sting was really, I think he was just a really cool character, especially the Crow version of Sting that came in the late 90s when he was off for a while due to injuries. That was the Sting that was most intriguing to me. The what I could only really refer to as the Ultimate Warrior version of him that was in WCW, because I guess at one point they did tag team with each other way back in the day. That Sting was okay. I respect his time in WCW and what he did there prior to becoming the Crow version. I respect what he did afterwards. I respect what he did in TNA. He was just a guy that I always wanted to see in a WWE ring. When he finally was able to come to the company, I wasn't a avid watcher. Like, I haven't watched Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-views in years. But I was really tickled by the fact that he had finally come to the WWE. And now it's sad to know that injuries are going to force him out of the business at a time that wasn't really of his choosing. So that's a bummer, and I'm sad about that. But the other two wrestlers who have recently come to WWE also make me really, really happy to see that they've finally come to the company that I and a lot of other people hold as the best of the best. And that is Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, both TNA and Ring of Honor superstars that lots of people have just, they've just been dying to see those guys come to the WWE and face off against WWE superstars. I guess Samoa Joe debuted last year in NXT, and he is still in NXT, although I have heard creative talk that he may come up after WrestleMania or around WrestleMania. And I've read so much about Samoa Joe. I know that, especially for a guy of his size, his shape, his build, he's, I was about to say a phenomenal wrestler, but I guess we should save that term for AJ Styles. But he is an amazing wrestler, and he was always held, in my opinion, kind of held up in TNA as sort of like, one of TNA's Austin's, Rock's, Hogan's, whatever, like a big name superstar that personifies what TNA is all about. And when he finally left them and came to NXT and is a part of WWE, that just felt like, we had finally we, as in a fan of WWE and as WWE, the company, had finally scored another one of these major guys out there who basically that was the last main promotion. Now I know these guys love Japan and they love Ring of Honor and they love all these different promotions, and I'm not trying to take anything away from those. But the majority of wrestling fans know that one way or another, whether you like it or not, WWE is kind of the top. And when a wrestler that you really, really love finally makes it there, you may be upset if later on down the road they're not utilized the way that they should. But they made it. And they get that publicity. They get that high-profile publicity of being in the show. So I'm glad that Samoa Joe is there. I hope that they go ahead and get him moved to the main roster soon so he can, get his foot in the door, get planted, get found a foundation in the company, and hopefully he's there for many, many years to come. Now, AJ Styles came along at the Royal Rumble. He debuted at the Royal Rumble, in the Royal Rumble itself. From what I've heard, he had a pretty good showing. He wasn't going to win it because this year the title was on the line in the Royal Rumble as opposed to most years where it's a title shot at WrestleMania that's up for grabs. But this year it was Roman Reigns who was the champ, and he was going up against everybody else in this match, and whoever was going to be the champ at the end was going to be, or whoever was left at the end would be crowned the champ, which ended up being Triple H, which is kind of weird because good old H is not an active wrestler these days. He's basically kind of like the Vince McMahon of the current day WWE. He's in charge of things, and that's his character on screen, is the guy who runs the show. So for him to jump into the ring, do the Royal Rumble, and win the title is interesting. Excuse me, it's interesting to say the least. Maybe that makes me choke up a little bit. I'm not a Triple H hater. There was a time many, many years ago when I felt like he got over-pushed and had the belts too often, and because of his behind-the-scenes relationship with Stephanie and all that, I felt like they were forcing him down our throats. I don't feel that way about him much anymore, and maybe it's because I don't see the product, so I don't see how much he's being forced down our throats. But I have a lot of respect for Mr. Helmsley, and so I'm just sort of like, okay, if that's what you guys want to do, if you want to make him the champ, if he's going to go into WrestleMania and get beat by somebody and it helps to put that person over, then whatever. But anyway, AJ Styles debuts in the Royal Rumble, has a good showing, has feuded mainly with Chris Jericho since then. I think they're going to be wrestling at WrestleMania, the two of them. I'm not 100% sure if that was the way they were wanting to go with it, or maybe it's just because the crowd response has been good and the matches have been good, so they've decided to make that a storyline that's lasted for a couple months. I don't know. I like Jericho a lot. I kind of miss what I call, or what I would consider to be his heyday, pretty much before the first time he took a hiatus from the company to go play with his band and do all that kind of stuff. He's older, he's looking it, he's sort of looking a little out of place and weird. Thing going on with his pectoral muscles is kind of strange. But he's still a good, promo guy, he's still a good interviewer. He's still smarmy and cocky, and he can still go in the ring. So that's awesome. I hope that really helps to boost AJ Styles. I hope AJ does really, really well. I know that he was an innovator of offensive maneuvers and whatnot in TNA. I hope he's allowed to shine in that way. I hope he doesn't get handcuffed with the way that the WWE sometimes goes about what they allow and what they don't allow in matches. But I think he has a chance to really shine. Now, I kind of hope that he stays up against guys that are more his size and whatnot. I don't think they need to throw AJ Styles to the Kanes and Undertakers of the WWE. They don't need to he doesn't have to be Rey Mysterio trying to conquer the giants. I think he needs to wrestle the best of the wrestlers on the card, and eventually, hopefully, he's battling out for championships down the road. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on those three particular gentlemen. It's sad to see Sting having to retire, but it's exciting to see guys like Samoa Joe and AJ Styles finally make it to WWE. Hopefully, they can shine. And I was gonna say maybe one of these days I'll get to watch the content, but no, I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But hopefully they continue to do really well, and we get some pretty cool Blu-rays and whatnot in the future that show off some of these guys' work in the ring. I think I've maybe said this before, but I'm gonna pimp it again here at the end of this video. The WWE, they fucking rock when it comes to their DVD and Blu-ray releases. I love it. Owen, Heart of Gold, that was the last video that I did. That was phenomenal. I have another new one that I'll show off in my pickups video. And then down the road, I know they have a Dudley Boys one coming out, which I think is one that I've always wanted to have. I can't wait to see that. And it's just like left and right. They do great ones based on stables, concepts, wrestlers, histories of championships, pay-per-views, like the history of the King of the Ring and all that kind of stuff. That's where I'm thriving and living off of WWE content, is buying these collections that I can watch whenever I want to, and they're really, really awesome. So I'm not a shill. I'm not paid. I'm a nobody on the YouTubes. But I just want to say, if you're a wrestling fan and you're not checking out some of the stuff that they're putting out, you are missing out. So that's all I got to say about that, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.